For the past 2 months, I'd been in a deep depression. My wife, who had finally gotten pregnant after so much trying, had a sudden miscarriage, and it was because of me. Chapter 1. If I hadn't been so focused on my delivery routes, she wouldn't have run out of the house in a panic after a nightmare, unable to reach me on the phone, and she wouldn't have been hit by a car and lost our baby. It was now midnight. Victoria Morgan was lying in bed, having just cried herself to sleep after I'd spent ages comforting her. Tears still clung to her eyelashes. She couldn't let go of our poor child. This scene had repeated itself many times over the last 2 months. Every time I saw her cry with guilt, my own sense of guilt deepened. To give her and our future children a better life, I wasn't content just doing food delivery. I also took on long-distance courier jobs. Tonight, I had an order that was 10 miles away. It was pouring rain outside, but the high-paying $150 fee was enough to treat Victoria to a nice dinner. But the roads were dark and slick. After picking up the package from a pharmacy on the east side of town, I hurried to the destination. I took a fall on the way, scraping my elbow and knee, but I couldn't worry about that. By the time I fumbled my way in the dark to apartment 1302 at the Banyan Grove Apartments, I was already late. A man, cursing under his breath, opened the door when I rang the bell. My face was hidden behind a helmet and mask, but I recognized his handsome, chiseled features. Wasn't this the same man who had hit my wife with his car at the intersection on Fairview Road 2 months ago, the one who had kindly taken her to the hospital? What was his name again? I remembered his last name was Hawthorne when I rushed to the hospital. Back then, he was at the payment counter, covering the costs. He said Victoria had suddenly darted into the road. Victoria had admitted it through her tears. I apologized profusely and paid him $5,000 for the windshield repair. I never thought I'd run into our benefactor on a delivery run. What took you so long? The man snatched the paper bag from my hand. And it's wet. If you can't do the job, then don't. I was about to apologize, the name Mr. Hawthorne on the tip of my tongue, when a soft, sultry female voice from inside the apartment sent a jolt through my body. You devil, why aren't you back in here yet? I've been waiting forever, coming. A lecherous grin spread across Ethan Hawthorne's face. He shot me a dirty look and slammed the door shut. That cuckold of yours will be home at 2. We don't have much time to play. The voice faded, but I would recognize it even if it were reduced to ashes. It was my wife, Victoria Morgan. Chapter 2. The little bear keychain discarded by the entryway was one I had made by hand. The woman in that apartment should have been in my bed at home, sound asleep. I don't know how I left the Banyan Grove. I only remember tumbling down a flight of stairs, the pain in my body turning to numbness as I staggered back to my feet, my soul completely shattered. I had to go home. Victoria was waiting for me at home. One of the streetlights below our apartment building was broken. I stood in the unseen shadows and watched as Victoria got out of a taxi. She glanced around furtively before heading upstairs. I figured she'd have enough time to wash up and get into bed, so I quickly stubbed out my 8th cigarette, put on a smile, and got in the elevator. As soon as I opened the door, I heard the soft shuffle of slippers. Victoria, wearing her little bear nightgown and fluffy yellow slippers, rubbed her drowsy eyes, looking as if I had just woken her up. "You're back?" she said casually, taking the dripping poncho from me and hanging it outside the door. I flinched involuntarily. "It's pretty cold in here. Did you not turn on the heat?" Victoria froze for a moment, then ran to turn up the thermostat. "Maybe it's broken. It hasn't been warming up. I had bought it less than 6 months ago. How could it be broken?" It wasn't broken. It was because she had snuck out for a rendezvous and the empty apartment's auto shutoff had kicked in. She hadn't been back long enough for it to heat up again. I grunted. "How come you're home so early today?" "It's raining, so there are fewer orders. Doesn't that mean you earned a lot less?" "The delivery fees are higher on rainy days," Victoria pouted, complaining with a hint of dissatisfaction. She didn't know that besides food delivery, I also did courier jobs at night. If she truly cared about me, she would have noticed I was limping, that my right hand was trembling and weak. But she didn't ask a single question. She was just going through the motions of being a wife. As the hot water poured over my head in the shower, mingling with the tears of pain and disappointment streaming down my face, I clenched my jaw, daring not to let out a roar of anguish. Victoria and I had dated for 3 years and been married for 2. How could I just throw away 5 years of my life? If the person I had truly loved suddenly disappeared from my world, would I fall apart. I slapped myself hard across the left cheek. I hated how powerless and cowardly I was. Victoria had been with me for 5 years and still hadn't had a good life. It was I who couldn't give her the promises and the future she deserved. That man. Maybe it was just a moment of weakness on her part. Everyone deserves one chance to be forgiven. For the next few nights, I came home early. I stayed with Victoria, watching shows, scrolling through videos, and eating late-night snacks. Curled up in my arms, she grew increasingly restless. Chapter 3. Have there been no orders these past few days? I've been working my tail off for half a month. I'm a little tired, just taking a break. Victoria turned over, looking me straight in the eye. It's Valentine's Day soon. Flower orders must be paying a fortune. Are you sure you're not going out? When I didn't answer, her brow furrowed with anger. She tossed the remote onto the couch. I'm tired. I'm done watching. I'm going to bed. Just then the doorbell rang. I hurried to the door and returned with a bouquet of red roses, presenting them to Victoria. Happy Valentine's Day, wifey. I'll love you forever. The sweet response I was expecting never came. Victoria stared blankly, then mechanically took the flowers and muttered a stiff thank you. My enthusiasm was instantly extinguished. Why the sudden flowers? Didn't you used to say I wasn't romantic? 99 red roses mean forever, till the seas run dry and the rocks crumble. Wifey, will you always be by my side? Perhaps my gaze was too intense. Victoria touched her neck uncomfortably. The heat is on too high. I'll go turn it down. As she turned away, I felt my eyes redden with a cold smile. Wifey, did you know? The night I came home late 4 days ago, I delivered a box of condoms to the Banyan Grove apartments. The roses scattered to the floor with a thud. I was just thinking, what kind of cheating couple would buy that stuff from a pharmacy 10 miles away? They can't be decent people. Nothing like my good little wife at home, right? Victoria's slender back began to tremble and heave. I walked over, placed a hand on her trembling shoulder, and continued as if talking to myself. Do you know what I saw? I saw that man who took you to the hospital. What was his name again? Ethan Hawthorne. What did you call him in there? Scoundrel. And what did you call me? Cuckold? No, husband, let me explain. Cuckold? What a thoughtful nickname. Should I go dye my hair green tomorrow to match? My bloodshot eyes ached as I stared at her tear-streaked, guilt-ridden face, but I couldn't squeeze out a single tear of my own. I kept asking myself, why, when I had given her my whole heart, could she lie to my face while sleeping with another man just 2 months after her miscarriage? You said you weren't feeling well, so I didn't touch you. There were 12 condoms in that box. 12. The thorn lodged in my heart suddenly shot out, twisting and turning against my spine. Victoria collapsed to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. She grabbed at my pant leg, begging me to listen to her explanation. What are you going to explain? That you went to another man's house for a late-night snack? What did you use to eat it, a condom? Let's get a divorce, Victoria. Chapter 4. No divorce, I don't want a divorce. Victoria clung to me desperately, refusing to let me storm out the door. She pulled out her phone and, right in front of me, deleted all of Ethan Hawthorne's contact information. With a trembling hand, she reached for my face. I recoiled in disgust. I was wrong, husband. I was so wrong. Victoria slumped to the ground, her little bare nightgown stained with rose petals, a wet patch spreading at the hem. My first instinct was to help her up. She shouldn't be on the cold floor, especially after the miscarriage. But I silently clenched my fists. She could take a taxi 10 miles in a torrential downpour to meet her lover. What was a little time on the cold floor? I'll tell you everything. That day I called you over 20 times because I had a nightmare that something had happened to you. I was scared, you didn't answer. I was panicking, so I just ran out of the house in a daze and into the street. That's when Ethan Hawthorne's car hit me. I staggered, nearly losing my balance. There had been a ton of delivery orders that night. I had argued with a restaurant that was slow with an order, and then with another rider who had scraped my scooter. I really hadn't paid any attention to Victoria's missed calls. I never imagined it would lead to something so devastating. Do you know Sincere? It was raining that night too. My blood was all over the ground and I still couldn't reach you. If Ethan hadn't taken me to the hospital, you wouldn't just have lost the baby. You would have lost me forever. I remembered how she had cried until she passed out in the hospital room. You weren't there for me when I needed you most. Ethan gave me the greatest sense of security. I admit I was wrong. But are you really completely blameless? I grabbed my hair and sank onto the sofa in despair. She was right. Victoria was the one who had suffered the most. I was unreachable when she was most terrified, and then while she was recovering from the miscarriage, I took on a second job and became even busier. I hadn't had time to consider her feelings. "Get up. The floor is cold." I helped Victoria up and sat her on my lap. Her nose was red from crying. She suddenly let out a loud sob, wrapped her arms tightly around my neck, and her tears fell onto my back. I gently stroked her trembling spine. Just forgive her, I told myself. Forgive this poor woman who just lost her child. She was my wife. As long as she was willing to change, I could pull out that thorn in my heart, but I never could have imagined. Once that thorn was pulled, an even longer, sharper blade was waiting to be plunged in. Chapter 5. Victoria smashed her phone in front of me. She swore she would never cheat again, that she would only love me for the rest of her life. I believed her. Filled with joy, I went back to taking orders on my little electric scooter, working tirelessly. But I don't know if it was a cruel joke from fate. At the very same intersection where Victoria had been hit, I was sideswiped by a car, scraping a patch of skin off my calf. Damn my luck, the driver cursed as he got out. "You're the one who shot out of nowhere. This has nothing to do with me." He glanced at the wound on my leg without any intention of compensating or apologizing. I had been going a little fast because I had a delivery that was about to be late, but I was certain I hadn't been speeding or breaking any rules. The driver, on the other hand, looked unnatural as he put his phone back in his pocket. He had slammed on the brakes over the line and then reversed slightly. "Let me see your dash cam footage. It's broken. I haven't had time to fix it." I looked around. The area was full of old residential buildings, and most of the traffic cameras were just outdated decorations. Suddenly, out of the corner of my eye, I spotted a phone repair shop on the side of the road. A shop like that, with all sorts of old phone parts, must have cameras. "Sure, you want to take a look?" The owner pointed to the security camera at the entrance of his shop. Luckily, the owner, Mr. Davis, was an easygoing man. Seeing I was at a disadvantage, he immediately pulled up the footage, which proved the driver was entirely at fault. The driver had been on his phone, which caused him to run a red light and hit me while I was following traffic laws. I sat in Mr. Davis's shop waiting for the police and insurance to sort things out, then went to a pharmacy next door to treat my wound. "You should head home and rest, son. You're injured, thank you, sir, but I have a family to support." I smiled politely, and then, thinking of Victoria, I found myself striking up a conversation with the shop owner. "Does this intersection get a lot of accidents?" "Not at all," Mr. Davis said as he sorted through his security tapes. "In the last 6 months, you're the first one." "That can't be right," I shot to my feet, ignoring the pain in my leg. "My wife had an accident here just over 2 months ago." Mr. Davis waved his hand dismissively. "Impossible. I'm in the shop every day." I couldn't have forgotten something as big as a car crash. Seeing my skeptical expression, he brought out the tapes he had just organized and found the recording for the date I mentioned. "See for yourself. In the footage, there was hardly any traffic on the late-night road." A gray Volkswagen drove past slowly, then turned around and parked under the dark shade of a tree by the roadside. A man leaned his head out of the car window. After making sure no one was around, he parked, turned off the windows and lights, and less than 5 minutes later, the car began to rock gently. Then it started shaking, the frequency gradually increasing until it finally calmed down half an hour later. The car door suddenly opened. A woman in the passenger seat stumbled out in a panic. I could vaguely see bright red blood under her white dress. It trickled down her calf, mixing with the rainwater on the ground. Chapter 6. The man got out of the car too. The woman seemed to be crying. The man held her tightly and they whispered to each other for a few minutes before the woman took out her phone and started making a call. The timestamp on the monitor read 12:36 a.m. That was the exact time of Victoria's first missed call to me. The woman in the video kept dialing and hanging up. The man then picked her up, put her in the car, and sped off towards the nearest city general hospital. I pulled out my phone and checked my call log. The time of the last missed call that night perfectly matched the moment the man carried the woman away. I collapsed into the chair. So there was no car accident. There were no anxious calls after a nightmare, no pitiful woman who had a miscarriage because her husband neglected her. There was only a pair of cheating dogs. Victoria had killed our child with her own hands. This disgusting pair didn't meet after some accident. There was no accident. Ethan Hawthorne wasn't some pillar of support in her time of need. They had sex in a car on the side of the road and shook our baby right out of her. When they didn't know how to handle it, they had the hospital call me to be the sucker who paid for everything. And I had thanked Ethan Hawthorne profusely. I had paid thousands for my wife darting into the road in the middle of the night. I never imagined the entire car accident was a lie. I went to the security guard at the Banyan Grove Apartments and casually asked around. Victoria was a frequent visitor to the building. It wasn't a one-time mistake as she had claimed. I returned home, exhausted. Victoria greeted me as usual, taking my face in her hands for a kiss, as if nothing had ever happened. I fought back the urge to vomit and sat down at the dinner table to listen to her talk. "This is a new dish I learned to make. Try it, husband." I took a bite. Yep, it tasted just like the braised chicken from that new place downstairs. The takeout container was still in the kitchen, not yet thrown away. It's delicious. You're so good to me, wifey." I forced a smile. Victoria enthusiastically had me sample the signature dishes from several nearby takeout restaurants. I ate the entire meal distractedly. The image from the security footage kept replaying in my mind, her in the car with another man, killing our child. And that night she knelt before me, her words a bloody accusation of my neglect as she swore she had broken things off with Ethan Hawthorne. I could still see her face so clearly. But now, her current facade, every word she said, I would never believe any of it again. Chapter 7. When she wrapped her arms around my neck to kiss me, I felt like I was sitting on pins and needles. Her face was flushed, her breathing ragged. She sat on my lap, her body burning hot, and reached for the buttons on my shirt. "Husband," Victoria drew out the word, her eyes filled with an endless allure. It was a look of pure seduction that I doubt any man could resist. But I stopped her hand. "It's getting late." I pulled out my phone, which had no new orders, and glanced at it. "I have to get back to my deliveries." I stood up abruptly, and she was unceremoniously dumped onto the sofa. She stared at me, stunned, her eyes welling up with tears. She clearly hadn't expected me to reject her like this. After all, it used to be me who was always begging her for intimacy. Maybe next time. "I'm just really busy tonight." After saying that, I didn't have the heart to look at her hurt expression. I just walked out the door. I got another order for the Banyan Grove Apartments. This time it was apartment 1202. And again, it was a box of condoms from the same pharmacy. I knocked for a long time. It sounded like the people inside were arguing about something, and they showed no sign of coming to the door. Just as I was about to call the customer, the man's voice inside suddenly rose. "I'm not going to marry you. I'm not done having fun yet. We agreed this was just for mutual satisfaction. Now you're pregnant and coming to me? Isn't that hilarious?" "Hilarious?" The condom broke. "What's that got to do with me? Stop calling me, I'm busy. Deal with the kid yourself. I'm not giving you a single cent." The door was yanked open violently. It was that same face that had cuckolded me from head to toe. Ethan Hawthorne snatched the bag from my hand, once again failing to recognize me. A woman in a bathrobe with wet hair peeked her head out. It wasn't Victoria. Before I could get a clear look, the door was slammed shut, and everything went silent. I could hear the woman inside complaining impatiently. "What are you going to do about that other woman? Are you really going to marry her and have a baby? In her dreams trying to tie me down with a kid, she can forget about it. You know me, don't you? I'm a little bird without feet, he. I didn't stick around to hear the rest. After finishing my deliveries, I hurried home. Victoria was sitting on the sofa, her eyes tear-rimmed as if she had just been crying. When she saw me, she wiped away the dried tear tracks. She came over, clung to my arm, and pulled something out from behind her back, placing it in my palm. "Husband, I'm pregnant again. This must be our lost baby coming back to us. We have to protect this one." I looked down. Staring at the pregnancy test in my hand, my heart was a mix of emotions. It all added up. The hysterical woman on Ethan Hawthorne's phone, Victoria's pregnancy test, and her tearful eyes. This child wasn't mine, but Victoria wanted to make him mine. Chapter 8. I turned my face away. Victoria blinked and large tears rolled down her cheeks. She kept chattering on. She talked about how much she had suffered trying to get pregnant before, how many shots she had to take, and how this baby was a hard-won miracle. The person saying these words was her. The person who got rid of our baby by having sex in a car was also her. Now she had a new baby. Ethan Hawthorne didn't want to take responsibility and was trying to dump her, so she turned right back around to find me, the cuckold. Could life really be this easy for some people? Apparently, it could. Wifey, I will take the best care of you and our child. I pretended to be overjoyed, pulling Victoria into a tight hug, the pregnancy test clutched firmly in my hand. This baby is a gift. We absolutely cannot let anything happen this time. I'll take tomorrow off and go with you to the hospital for a checkup. I made breakfast early the next morning. I waited on Victoria hand and foot, helping her get up, washed, and dressed. I was the model of attentiveness. Her face glowed with happiness. At the City General Hospital's OB/GYN department, Victoria went in for her examination. The doctor, Dr. Evans, came out to see me with her report, a look of concern and confusion on his face. A couple with AB type and O type blood has a high risk of having a child with ABO hemolytic disease. Didn't you know this? Mr. Clark, your wife is O type and you're AB type. Making this mistake once is one thing, but how could you let it happen a second time? Dr. Evans told me that this baby had tested positive for ABO hemolytic disease, and before this, the baby she supposedly miscarried in the car accident had suffered from the same condition. It was just that Victoria hadn't been tested for it back then. Mrs. Clark had a threatened miscarriage a year ago, so her chances of having a fetus with ABO hemolytic disease are quite high when paired with an AB-type male. But I'm B-type, and I had no idea that Victoria had a threatened miscarriage a year ago. Perfect, just perfect. So Victoria had been pregnant with 3 children, and none of them were mine. Victoria came out of the examination room. Dr. Evans patted my shoulder and told me to discuss the next steps for treatment with her. Chapter 9. We needed to decide whether to terminate the pregnancy or what. Terminate? What do you mean, terminate? Victoria became frantic, rushing over and grabbing my hand. I helped her sit down, doing my best to calm her. The doctor says our baby has been diagnosed with ABO hemolytic disease. There might be a risk of anemia and jaundice in the future. Victoria froze. She knew her own blood type, but she had never once asked for mine. Husband, you're AB type, right? I stared at her face for a long time, then nodded. She seemed to let out a sigh of relief. The tension in her back eased, and she leaned against my chest and began to cry. What are we going to do? The baby has this disease. It's okay. The doctor said that as long as it's detected early and we start treatment now, we can alleviate a lot of the symptoms. I squeezed her cold fingers and comforted her softly. I've made some money from my stock investments recently. I'll work harder on my deliveries to make sure our child gets the best treatment. Wifey, I'm not going to give up on this baby. In the examination room, Victoria had already heard the bad news. She had asked the nurse if she could terminate this pregnancy and try again for a baby with me. But the nurse's answer was a bolt from the blue. Mrs. Clark, you've already had 2 miscarriages, the last one being particularly traumatic. If you have another abortion this time, your uterine lining will become extremely thin. It might be very difficult to have another child. That's why she was so nervous. She was scared, she was desperate, and her wish to tie me down with this child had nearly failed. When she heard my blood type and that I wasn't blaming her, but instead promising to do everything to save this child, Victoria seemed to feel my love. Her heart began to lean toward me bit by bit. This pregnancy was very hard on her. She started having morning sickness at 2 months, vomiting so much that she lost a lot of weight. Every day after work, I would come home and cook all sorts of nutritious meals for her. She got used to them, and after 3 months, the vomiting stopped. Her body began to swell and gain weight visibly. Looking at the ever-increasing number on the scale, Victoria pressed against my chest and asked nervously, Husband, I'm almost 155 pounds now. Will you find me unattractive and leave me? Never, wifey. You're working so hard carrying my child, I couldn't cherish you more. How could I ever find you unattractive? By the 2nd trimester, Victoria's weight had shot up to 175 pounds. Her appetite grew enormous. She would eat until she threw up and still not stop. Chapter 10. I would always be by her side, comforting her gently. Pregnant women need to eat more so the baby can grow strong and healthy. Besides, our baby has hemolytic disease and needs constant treatment, so we have to make it up to him, right? 4 transfusions, iron supplements. I made sure Victoria got the best equipment and the best imported medicine. The stock market was doing well. The money I invested had multiplied several times over. Don't worry about money. I'm here. I'll never let you 2 suffer. I bought Victoria purses, flowers, and gold. Her body grew heavy, putting pressure on her lumbar spine and causing a herniated disc. Coincidentally, her job required her to sit in front of a computer for long hours. I massaged her back and offered a concerned suggestion. Wifey, with your back hurting so much, why don't you quit your job and rest at home? Just leave the money-making to me. But, Victoria hesitated, I can't just not work. For one, I'll get bored and overthink things. And two, without financial independence, what security do I have? I fondly stroked her greasy hair. Aren't I all the security you need, wifey? I pulled a bank card from the drawer and handed it to her. There's several $1,000s in here. Take it and spend it. If it's not enough, just ask for more. You love online shopping, don't you? Your husband is making money now, so you can buy whatever you want. Victoria was moved to tears. She thought I had dedicated my entire being to her. She thought she had hit the jackpot with a rare blue-chip stock. But she didn't know that every penny I spent on her now would one day be reclaimed. I was just waiting for the day she had no other support, the day she became completely dependent on me and couldn't possibly leave. And that day was coming very soon. The baby was finally full term. After months of treatment, the hemolytic disease had shown significant improvement. The doctor said that with continued treatment until delivery, the baby should be fine. That night, for the first time in a long time, I came home very late. Victoria had waited for me in the bedroom but had already fallen asleep. I opened the door quietly and heard thunderous snores. She had become a 220-pound woman. When she turned over in bed, the solid wood frame creaked. That was all thanks to my delicious meals and nutritional supplements. Husband, I'm sorry. She called my name in her sleep, murmuring through her tears. Don't leave me. Let's raise the baby together. I'll love you forever. Too late, Victoria. You said those words far too late, and I've waited for far too long. So long that I've lost all patience. I placed the divorce papers on her pillow. I gently closed the door behind me without looking back. I had a peaceful night's sleep in a hotel. As the first light of dawn streamed in, I turned on my phone. Over 30 missed calls. Among them were calls from my parents and my in-laws. Chapter 11. I called them back one by one. My mother-in-law immediately laid into me, yelling about why I would divorce Victoria during her pregnancy. You ungrateful wretch, Victoria worked so hard to carry a child for you. Did you go out and find another woman while she was pregnant? Ma'am, oh no, I should call you Miss Lowell now. Miss Lowell, the child in Victoria's belly is not mine, and the one who went out looking for someone else wasn't me, it was her. I sent copies of the prenatal report and my own blood type test results to every one of our relatives. The family group chat exploded. ABO hemolytic disease, Victoria is O-type, and Sincere is B-type. It's impossible for them to have a child with ABO hemolytic disease. Victoria Morgan, you get on here and explain yourself. You cheated on my son? Victoria, we don't have a daughter like you. We can't afford this disgrace. Don't even think about coming home for the holidays this year. Once the situation had festered enough, I finally called Victoria. Husband, don't divorce me, I can explain. Can you come meet me? I'll wait for you at the park we always used to go to. I went. The park was the same as always. The children's slide had been repainted, but it had long lost its charm. When we were dating, we had no money. We couldn't afford to go to malls or sit in cafes. We could only come to this free park. We could spend half a day chatting over $2 bottles of water and $5 sandwiches. But now, as I watched her cry her heart out in front of me, I couldn't say a word. She was overweight and unattractive, but in my heart she was no different from the pretty young girl she used to be. It wasn't her appearance that had changed, it was her heart. Husband, I was wrong. I was so wrong. I'm here. Explain, I said, my expression cold. In front of a crowd of onlooking ladies from a public dance group, Victoria dropped to her knees before me with a thud. For someone so concerned with her image, she wouldn't have done this unless she was truly desperate. Chapter 12. The baby is 8 months along. Please don't divorce me. I don't know what I'll do. The music from the dance group stopped abruptly. The nosy ladies gathered around and, without knowing the facts, started to lecture me. How can a grown man do something so beastly? Yeah. Your wife sacrificed her figure to have your children, and now that you've made it, you're just going to dump her? I clenched my jaw and shut my eyes tightly. A roar erupted from the depths of my throat. Get your facts straight. The one who cheated was her, not me, and she's not carrying my child. I was just a convenient guy to take the fall. I leaned down close to Victoria's face and enunciated each word with force. Cuckold, right, Victoria? Your prenatal reports. The security footage of you and your lover having sex in a car on Fairview Road, and the restored chat logs from your secret account. Do you need me to send a copy of each to all these ladies? Victoria's body trembled, and the hand gripping my pant leg slowly slid off. But this baby, he's sick. You've been paying for his treatment for so long. Don't you have any feelings for him? She looked up, her eyes glistening with tears. I'd almost forgotten about that. I raised your bastard child for 8 months and spent quite a bit of money, including all the flowers, purses, and gold I bought for you. All of that counts as expenses related to your extramarital affair, so I'm going to need you to pay me back. Every last cent. I pulled out my phone and showed her the bank transfer records, the purchase histories from shopping apps, and the photos of receipts for the gold. I waved them in her face. Sincere, can't you just give me one more chance? I gave you plenty of chances, Victoria. I had no desire to argue with her any longer. You don't sign the divorce papers, I'll sue you for adultery. Your reputation will be ruined, and you'll have to pay even more. I'll draw up an itemized list of everything I've spent on you and have it delivered to your new address. And before that, please do me the favor of getting your filth out of my house. Chapter 13. Victoria refused a divorce. I hired a lawyer and sued her, demanding compensation for all my expenses over the past year since she started cheating with Ethan Hawthorne. This included financial and emotional damages, totaling $300,000. She was jobless, pregnant, and ostracized by her family and friends. Her parents had already cut off all contact. Now she was lying alone in a hospital bed, unable to even pay for the upcoming delivery and hospital stay. The day the baby was born, I had just quit my job as a delivery driver and was preparing to switch to the finance industry. But I got a call from the hospital. Because the treatments had stopped, Victoria's child was born with jaundice and was very weak. He needed to be in an incubator and on an IV drip, but the incubator was expensive, and Victoria couldn't scrape together the money. Her parents' phones were unreachable, her friends had distanced themselves, so the hospital had no choice but to call me, her legal husband. I drove to the hospital. When Victoria opened her eyes and saw me, tears instantly streamed down her face. Husband? Don't call me husband, just use my full name. I don't deserve the title. The baby isn't doing well. The hospital's plan will cost about $100,000. Do you have it? She lowered her head after speaking, biting her lip, not daring to look at me. It was only then that she truly understood her mistake. But it was far too late. $100,000? Yes, I have it. Victoria looked up, her eyes shining with hope. But why should I spend money on someone else's child? Wouldn't it be better to use that $100,000 for a down payment on a new car? Or I could get a dog. I could feed it the best food every day, and at least a dog knows to come home and wag its tail. What about you? Victoria clutched my sleeve, begging me to lower my voice. But I shook her hand off. While I was working my ass off as a delivery driver, you were fooling around with another man and got pregnant 3 times. And not one of those 3 was mine. Victoria, do you think I'm that easy to fool? That I'm that stupid? The curtain of the adjacent hospital bed was pulled back. Nosy new mothers poked their heads out, eager to eavesdrop on the drama. The color drained from Victoria's face. I can pay this $100,000, but it will be added to the money you owe me. A total of $400,000. If you agree, we sign the papers right now, and I'll go to the billing office and clear the bill. If you don't agree, I'm leaving right now, and you'll never be able to reach me by phone again. You can deal with your bastard child's life or death on your own. Victoria bit her lips so hard that it started to bleed. Chapter 14. Where am I going to get $400,000 to pay you back? I don't have a job, I have a baby to take care of, and this 200-pound body. Oh, but you can become a delivery driver. I was overweight too when I first started. Who do you think I lost all those pounds for? I waved a hand dismissively and shook my head. Never mind, it's not worth bringing up. Victoria had no choice. The baby's condition was critical and needed immediate medical attention. She was forced to sign the papers, taking on another $100,000 of debt. After paying the bill and leaving the hospital, I threw away my old SIM card. I sold the marital home, bought a new apartment, and moved away from the city where we had lived. Victoria couldn't find me, and gradually, I heard no more news of her. Only on the court-mandated monthly repayment date, a transfer of $5,000 would appear in my bank account. $400,000. It would take her nearly 7 years to pay it off. I never thought I would see her in this city again one day. After my success in stock trading, I discovered I had a talent for finance, so I studied for certifications and got a job at a financial firm. This time, the company had sent me back for a training seminar. I was hungry in my hotel room, so I opened a delivery app and randomly ordered some barbecue skewers and a beer. There was a knock on the door. A short woman in a helmet stood there, her face shield covered in raindrops. She wiped it clumsily, flinging water onto the floor. A few drops splattered onto my silk pajamas, and I couldn't help but frown. "I'm so sorry, sir, so sore." The woman looked up, and the expression in her eyes shifted from guilt and timidity to shock, then to a flustered unease as she averted her gaze. "Victoria Morgan," I said, her name coming out precisely. She turned back to face me, forcing herself to meet my eyes calmly. She wiped her hands on her poncho and pulled the barbecue from her insulated delivery bag, handing it to me. Mr. Clark, enjoy your meal." With that, she slung the bag over her shoulder, turned and fled in a panic. I didn't even have a chance to ask how she had been these past 2 years, or how the child with hemolytic disease was doing. But then I thought there was probably no need to ask. Her hands were rough, wrinkles had crept into the corners of her eyes over 2 years, and she was utterly exhausted, so thin she was just skin and bones. And yet, she could have been cherished in the palm of my hand like a precious pearl. I shut the hotel room door with a soft click. The figure by the elevator sank to the floor, leaning against the wall, and let out a small, almost inaudible sob.